It is one of the most challenging professions, but I will say it's one of the greatest paths that you can take, because not only do you get a lot of joy from doing it, but the amount of discipline that is instilled in you can filter through your everyday life. And I think that is a really incredible skill for a young person to have. Discipline is incredibly great to have, and also doing something you're passionate about. Scaling down a show technically is very challenging, but you work very closely with the technical director, and ultimately you have a story to tell, and there's always a way. Everything is figure-outable. You can always scale down a show. And this is why sometimes we also have to cut shows, because sometimes, acts don't work, or, an artist could be out. It's always figure-outable. What I love about the role of maintaining a show and being a resident director is I get to constantly help and take care of those people. It's really a purpose-driven role in the industry. Every day you have a purpose. You're there to not only take care of the show, but the humans. And that's I feel really grateful to be able to do that.
Welcome to the Stage Link podcast. Today, we're talking with Tara Young.
Tara has worked for over 30 years as an artistic director and associate on over a dozen Broadway shows and international Cirque shows across the globe with some of the most respected names in the industry. Raised in Calgary, Alberta, Tara began dancing at the age of 3. Her dream was to be on Broadway, and at just 19 years old, she was fortunate enough to land her first job dancing with Liza Minnelli in Steppin' Out at the Radio City Musical. Within a few years, Tara knew that her passion was being part of the creative team that develops a Broadway musical. She soon made the transition from performing to serving as an associate director choreographer. Tara most recently was a resident director choreographer on the Broadway show New York, New York. Prior to this, she lived in Dubai as the artistic director of Perle, and then before this, she was artistic director for the Han show in Wuhan, China, both shows working with world-renowned director Franco Dragone. Tara, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Wow. My whole last 30 years just flashed in front of me.
How does that feel?
How does it feel? I feel very grateful to be, I was adding some humor, but I feel very grateful. It's been incredible. It's an incredible journey, and it still is.
I know your story very well, Tara, but for our audiences, you started dancing at the age of 3. And how did you know that you wanted to be a dancer, and what was your actual trajectory to get to, working with Liza Minnelli at such a young age?
Yes. The focus was very clear as a young girl. I started tap dancing, and I loved making noise, and I loved to see what I could do with my feet. That made me very, very happy. And I became quite skilled in that area. Fast forward, I had a vision at about 10 years old that I was going to do this professionally. And I announced it to my family and said, this is what I want to do. I was in Calgary, Alberta, and I said, I want to be in New York City. And there was like a little small resistance, but not so much, because they could see it in me. And I went to a theater school and then ultimately auditioned for Liza Minnelli at a young age. And she chose me to dance in her show. That was very fast.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And that was a fast explanation. I mean yes.
So you must have been good then.
I think there's a lot of really talented people in our industry. I think timing had a lot to do with it. There was some really incredible timing. That thought process of when opportunity meets the luck that you have. And I think that happened for me. I mean, I think there was some luck involved, and there was an opportunity at the right time. And certainly I had done a lot of preparation. I am somebody who loves a good amount of preparation, which led me into my what I did after performing. Preparing is the best. And that's what I do as an associate or resident director of a show.
And how is that transition from being a dancer to becoming choreographer, director?
Initially it was very difficult in the sense that I didn't know that I wanted it. I am forever grateful to many people in my career, but one lady in particular, Susan Stroman, saw in me that I had behind the scenes skill, and she gave me an opportunity, and I learned a lot very early, and I did learn that I loved that role. And that's not what I initially thought I would be doing. I thought I'd be, on stage performing even till now, but it's been, over 30 years of doing behind the scenes work. I pay attention to the people I respect, and I paid attention to her for sure.
When you were a dancer, tell us, for those who may not be in the industry right now, what are some of the myths and realities of life as a dancer?
Well, I don't know if this is a myth. It is one of the hardest professions to embark on. If someone had said to me, with what I know now, it is one of the most challenging professions. But I will say it's one of the greatest paths that you can take, because not only do you get a lot of joy from doing it, but the amount of discipline that is instilled in you can filter through your everyday life. And I think that is a really incredible skill for a young person to have. Discipline is incredibly great to have, and also doing something you're passionate about. But it's incredibly difficult. I mean, so challenging.
So what are the biggest challenges, or what makes it so hard?
Well, certainly the amount of rejection that happens. It's the percentage of people that make it in show business is quite small. That part is really challenging, and not taking things personally can be very difficult. And to learn to not take things personally at a young age is maybe not something that you would normally learn at a young age if you were, say, going into a different field. But you really have to learn that very quickly. And I still practice it on a daily basis to not take things personally. I mean, it's tricky. It is really tricky.
Do you think it's kind of like a delicate balance between tenacity and talent? Because I've seen a lot of talented people that haven't had a lot of tenacity, and then if they haven't kept putting themselves out there. But if you've got no talent, then tenacity is not going to get you so far as well, right? So,
Certainly.
What do you feel the balance is there?
I think you certainly need to have talent, but you need to have a resilience about you, a resilience to persevere and work through, because it takes a lot of practice to do what we all do in the industry, whether you're a performer, whether you're an acrobat, whether you're a stage manager, whether you're in wardrobe. It takes a huge amount of resilience to do what we all do. So that's a great tool to learn early in life. And I did learn that early for sure. But again, I find in the industry, we get to practice it every day. It's all about beginning again, isn't it? I mean, there is an element to constantly have a comeback. Our life is full of these comebacks. We go up and down in our industry, and comebacks are fun. They're really fun.
That's what I thought of during the pandemic a lot, because a lot of people got abruptly stopped work, and not just in our industry, many industries. And what I think our industry, or me personally, had come to the realizations that there was a lot of beginnings, middles, and ends in our work, and we become accustomed to that. So for me, the COVID pandemic for me was just another new beginning, middle, and end period. It was a very different one, but it was something that I wasn't completely it wasn't foreign to me, not the issue itself, but the hiatus of work for a period of time and having to figure something else out. And then it became strange to me to see other people reacting differently in the industry. I was like, oh, you haven't had a lot of beginning, middles, and ends. You've been on the same show for 20 years, and now that's a big shock, right?
Yes. I agree with you, Anna. I felt it's just another moment to begin again. And in a way, I actually find that a challenge. And there's something kind of, again, you get to have a comeback. You get to figure out how to do it again. And we're always doing something new, aren't we? But you also sometimes think that it's always going to be your last job. So you're always, you're only as good as your last job. So you're forever putting in 150%. That's, I think that's an old school way of thinking, or maybe it's everybody. I'm not certain, but I always think it's my last job. I feel very lucky when the next job shows up.
Yeah, totally can relate. And I'm gonna go back a little bit and say, because it's interesting how you think about dancing as being the hardest or a very, very hard career, right? And I don't know if it was today or yesterday. I was talking to a friend who's a musician. She's classically trained as a musician, but she does other kind of music beyond, classical music. And when I was a little kid, when I was about 3, 4, 5, I thought I was going to be a musician. And I was telling my friend, you know what? I'm really glad I didn't choose that path, or I kept studying music probably until 15 or something. But I said it wasn't for me. And then looking back, I what I was telling her is like, it's such a hard career. And it's not only the amount of hours you practice, but the toll that it takes on your psychological health of rejections or trying again or not being exactly on the path that you want to be, but being close enough. Not that we don't, but I think for musicians can be, or maybe like classical performers in general, whether it's theater, dance, or music, I think it can be very rough. Like the training at the conservatories is very rough. Entering into like doing all these auditions and all this interviewing, and it's tough. It's psychologically hard.
Yes. It takes an immense amount of courage. But what a rich life we have, to be able to reflect and say, wow, I was so brave. I mean, I think about moving to Wuhan, and I thought at the time, I didn't realize how much courage that was going to take. And Anna, you understand what I'm talking about, leaving your home and moving to a foreign place. Both of you understand. Both Annas understand. It takes an incredible amount of courage, and you feel taking yourself out of your comfort zone is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, because you don't get to go back to your go-tos, the things that always worked for you. They don't actually work sometimes in foreign countries. So you have to dig a little deeper, and that's incredibly rewarding. And I will forever be thankful to, it was Franco Dragone that hired me in Wuhan and in Dubai, and how lucky I was, to be stretched. So when I came back to New York, I felt stretched in a way. I felt like I was able to handle like a wider scope of what I hadn't seen before. Travel is a gift.
And it is. And also just, it's one thing to travel, but to live in another country comes with so many cultural shocks, right? I think when you're on traveling, you can go take a picture of the Eiffel Tower and, front of Big Ben, but to live in the culture and try and get something done and work has always been such a enriching part of my life, because it becomes also a skill that you hone, right? Because your ability to adapt to the environment, ability to work with multicultural teams, and you went right in there, right? You didn't do it like I always call Macau and Hong Kong kind of like China light and diet China, right? But you went right into the middle. And what was that like? Tell us.
It was terrifying, and I called my therapist a lot in New York, and I asked for help. I asked for advice, because there was so little English being spoken that I couldn't feed on the language. I felt quite lonely. And also, respectfully and with great respect, we were a guest in their country. It's not the United States of America or Canada. It's their country. So I had to learn the ways. And it took for sure 6 months to even just understand why things would not work exactly how they would work in New York on Broadway. Again, it was a real gift to learn that. But it was very, very lonely at first, very lonely. And sure, I had many nights where I thought, is this the best choice for me? I'm feeling really, really lonely. Am I the best artistic director that they need right now? I was constantly reflecting on that. But then you get up and you do the work. I have, I have a, what is it? I have a way of working. What is it? Work ethic. Is that what it is? Maybe one of you can help me with the word. I show up. I'll always show up, even if it's difficult for me. I'll show up. You need to.
And now a note from our sponsor. The StageLink podcast is proud to be sponsored by ClearCom. ClearCom is the leader in voice communications for theatre and the performing arts. Call your cues with the simplicity and elegance of ClearCom intercom solutions. You can find them at clearcom.com. Go check them out.
I don't know if I'm going to go on a tangent, but you were working on Broadway, went to work for Circus, and then came back to Broadway. Is that right?
Yes.
How's straddling those paths of the industry that can be a little bit different?
Completely different. Yes, right. Well, I mean, there's 41 theaters on Broadway, and the theaters are, they're quite a bit smaller, smaller houses. That alone is different. Real estate is tighter, but just the culture here is different. It's, again, I stretched myself, so I was able to come back and kind of, in a way, breathe, because I had been other places. So again, I was very, very fortunate, but it's very different. Now, do I have a preference? That might be a question. Like, what do you like better? I like them all. I really like them all. I would do anything to go back into the world of circus, because I just love how much it stretches all of us. At the same time, hearing the overture on a Broadway show and getting to do it 8 times a week is really great. It's every day you get to begin again. Every day, even if you're having a bad day, at 8 o'clock that baton goes up and the overture happens, and you are forced to figure out how to start again, because the audience is seeing it for the first time. So I love that part of New York, and I love walking to the theater. That makes me really happy, walking home.
I love that.
Yeah.
Tell us for those who may not know, because I know Anna and I know very well, but what does a resident director on a circus show do on a day-to-day basis?
On a circus show, it's a little bit different because than a Broadway show, but both united is maintaining the original integrity and direction and choreography of what was set out for the show to be. So that is the overall. You maintain what originally was intended for the audience to see, and you hope that you are delivering a show every night that's like an opening night performance. So that is your goal, and you are lifting the teams up to be able to do that. On a circus show, it's so much bigger. So you have teams of people that you have the privilege to work with, and you never feel, in that sense, you never feel alone. The large teams are incredible that you get to communicate with to maintain that integrity of the show. I think that's what I miss a lot when I'm not doing a show, working with those teams, because we all work together for the same vision to, lift that curtain at whatever time it is in a circus show. Sometimes we do more than 8 shows a week. Isn't that correct, Anna? We sometimes do like 10. Yeah. And they're shorter shows. Yeah. The other thing is no intermission. And also there's rotation. Often acrobats don't do, and artists, I think we use the term artists in circus shows. They don't do the same act all the time so their bodies can rest. Whereas on Broadway, you would, the actors do 8 shows a week. That's different. There's unions, a different protocol.
Yeah. It's been such a long time since I've seen a Broadway show. I need to get back there.
There's something incredibly magical about, again, that overture, the lights going down, dimming, house to half. And hearing a live orchestra, and you're very, very close, very, very present. You feel you're a part of it.
Yeah, I realized the other day I've done my family a disservice because actually I did go to a show. We went to see School of Rock in Hong Kong with my kids.
Good. Yeah.
And we get to, I don't, like, I just was like, maybe just I haven't taken them to enough shows, but we get to intermission. And then my daughter turns to me and goes, "Is it over?" I said, "No, it's intermission." And she turns to me and goes, "What's intermission?" And I was like, "Oh my God,
yeah.
I haven't taken you to enough shows if you don't know what bloody intermission is." I was so upset with myself.
Yeah.
My son is the one that's into theatre. My daughter's into sports, but I would have thought she would have known that term. So I've got some more teaching to do.
Isn't that funny? Yes, my family was very generous to me as a young child and took me to shows in London. Because my mom is British, so we would go to the West End, and that's where it clicked in. I saw what was happening, and I felt, I mean, I knew. I was like, I'm going to figure out how to do this.
Was there a particular show that you saw that said that's it?
You know, it was Cats, which is kind of, you know, I just saw those people pretending to be cats. I had no idea what they were doing, but I know they were pretending to be cats and singing the Jellicle Ball. And I thought, well, isn't that's swell? That is really swell. I want to pretend to be a cat. Yeah. I liked Cats. I did. And we saw other shows. We saw Guys and Dolls, Starlight Express, Song and Dance, but I really liked Cats. And then I auditioned to, you know, be in Cats, and I was cut right away, which was devastating. But I was determined to keep going. I was cut a lot. I was definitely cut a lot.
But that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
This is a particularly hard show for dancers, I think, without being one.
Yeah. Well, they're all hard. It's so you have to have so many skills to get into a show. I have great admiration and for all that do it and continue to do it. It takes so much work. It takes so much work. And I think what I love about the role of maintaining a show and being a resident director is I get to constantly help and take care of those people. It's really a purpose-driven role in the industry. You know, every day you have a purpose. You're there to not only take care of the show, but the humans. And that's I feel really grateful to be able to do that.
When you got to take care of humans, what is the differences between Broadway and circus in that sense?
Humans are humans. I actually don't see any difference. I mean, there's a different preparation for sure with circus shows because of all that goes into, you know, people's lives. You know, you have to check. There's so many different checks. But again, you have these incredible teams, and when you're working on these incredible high scale shows, there's really exceptional people that get hired. So you feel very, I'm overusing the word lucky. Let's find another word for me. But, you know, you are surrounded by excellence in circus shows. And the same goes for Broadway. Humans are humans. Just listening. Anna, you've heard me say this, but listening with the intent to understand is something I love to do versus listening with the intent to reply. So every day with artists or actors, just listen and see what happens. And every day is a new day. There will be something. Guaranteed it will not be boring. It's never boring. It's never the same. There's always something. And I say thank you. Yep.
We've been mostly talking about resident shows, but you've also done some touring, right?
I did. Yes.
How's that different?
Well, it changes every day. That's the thing. Touring is constantly changing. And if you're somebody who likes structure and the same thing every day, touring is really challenging because you don't really know where you are. If you tour like we did with the Michael Jackson Immortal tour, we toured often, sometimes 2 or 3 cities a week. And sometimes I actually didn't know where I was, but I knew what my job was. So I just kept my eyes ahead. And but they announced where we were all the time, so I would know. But it was very challenging. Yeah, touring is a lot of work, and touring arena shows are really they're big shows. You know, they're much bigger than resident shows. That was an incredible feat. That really stretched me as well.
That seems insane to move an arena show 2 to 3 times a week. That's kind of huge, right?
Yes, it was huge. And anybody that understands loading in and loading out, it is incredible. The load in, I think we got the load in down to an 8-hour load in and then a 2 to 3 hour load out. But if I remember correctly, we started that tour with I think 80 trucks, and then we had to come down because 80 trucks wasn't going to tour. But we still toured with, you know, I'm saying this and I don't remember exactly, but it could have been 50 trucks. I mean, we toured with the stage, and you know, it was huge.
Wow.
Yeah, it was incredible.
And where did that tour go to with you?
I think I 23 countries, 27 countries, 500 cities. It's somewhere in my bio. A lot of all the places, all the countries, all the languages.
But that's tough if you're spending, you know, not a lot of time in each location. You don't have a lot of time to sit and look at, and you know, sometimes Cirque shows that are on tour go and sit in Japan for 3 months, right? So you got time to live in Japan for 3 months. But that arenas are not like, that's not the same cadence.
No, but you put your, you know, it's again, a discipline to put your mindset forward of this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm going to do every day. And wherever we show up, the audience believes it's their opening night. So that is our mission. I didn't actually think about I wasn't sightseeing. I was hired to do a job. So I didn't even worry about it. I didn't even think about it. I was there to do a job. And that made it easy for me. If I was there to sightsee, I'd be really sad because I wouldn't see anything.
That's right.
You know, that wouldn't happen, would it? Yes. No, I was there to work. My favorite. I love working.
Might be a little bit more on the technical side, but how do you do to preserve the integrity of the show when you have to scale down from 80 trucks to 50 trucks or 40 trucks, which is something that often happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, and you know, again, I can't remember if it was exactly 80, but at any time, it's scaling down a show technically is very challenging, but you work very closely with the technical director. And ultimately, you have a story to tell. And there's always a way. Everything is figure outable. You can always scale down a show. And this is why sometimes we also have to cut shows, because sometimes, you know, acts don't work, or, you know, an artist could be out. It's always figure outable. Just know what story you need to tell and then work closely with your technical director. I find that a challenge, and I always know it's possible. It's possible, but you just have to be organized and work with great people. But I've been really fortunate. I have worked with great people, you know, and you need to listen.
That I always think, I think also because post-pandemic, I think budgets are a little leaner and people want things a little faster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit of a challenge when you're asking for lots of money to doing something. But I was thinking about this the other day because my old high school drama teacher and one of my friends who was a fellow student went to see The Woman in Black. Have you seen that show? Do you know the show?
Yeah, no, I know it, but I haven't seen it.
And whenever I think about money and stuff like that when we talk about the first show that impacts you as a teenager or as a child, that was one of the shows that impacts me, because it's one of the theatre shows that plays that uses very, very old school theatrical tricks to execute the story. You know, the idea of diversion of your attention, and then a person's in the middle of the stage and the light comes up and scares you, and just all of these quite old theatrical tricks. And whenever I think about reducing budget, I think we can do a lot with not much if you go back to basic theatrical principles and use them well, right?
That's right.
And we spend a lot these days, especially in the realms that I am in, on wow factors and technical complications. And I live in this mega show sort of environment. But for me, I didn't come from that. I come from a small town with very, small town musicals that were put on by the local people in my town.
Yeah.
And it's always good to come back to those roots when you're feeling like the show is getting away from you. It's really not that hard. Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, in that, again, focus on the humans that are telling the story. We don't have to focus on the technical elements help us greatly, but it starts from a human. So it's always figure outable. A show doesn't have to, things will change. It's inevitable. Change is kind of constant, especially when you're touring. But even with resident shows, it happens. Focus on the humans. They can tell the story.
What would you say is your favorite thing about your job?
Making a difference. Every day, making a difference. Every day, I know that there'll be something I need to figure out and help. And guaranteed every day there will be something that I need to do. And so it's always rewarding. It's always rewarding for me. I will end the day, saying, wow, I made a difference somewhere along the way. So I chose a good path.
Amazing. And if you could change one thing about your job or the industry, what would that be?
I'd like there to be more work for everybody. I'd love there to always be more work. Because the people that do it love it. They love it. I mean, why would you go into show business if you didn't love it? I mean, it's absolutely. So I'd love there to be more shows getting done, more people to be able to hire more excellence. But that's a big question. We could have a whole podcast on what could change in show business. But let's have more shows, more entertainment. Employ more people, have more audiences be happy. That would be great. That would be great.
I like that. I don't think we've had that answer before. Have we, Anna? There we go.
No.
That's a new one for us. I like it. Tara, thank you so much for joining us on the Stage Link podcast. It's been truly a pleasure to see you again and have you tell us your story. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very, very appreciative. Thank you.